there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. So this stamp set here, do you ever get that kind of feeling when you get a stamp set and you're like, this is me? So I was looking at this one and I kind of knew straight away what I thought I was going to do with this. So a friend of mine, Sasha Reed, she sent this to me and she knew that I had been ogling over this one. I was waiting for it to come back in stock to purchase it myself, but she beat me to it. And not too long ago, Lindsay from The Frugal Crafter, she did a kind of rainbow rose pattern. She drew hers because she is fabulous. I am not that way inclined, so I am going to use this stamp. However, any nice big floral stamp will work well for this. I had a couple in my stash, but this rose was just something that I was waiting for. So I am using a really light ink. This is the Simon Hurley Woof ink. It's kind of a grey brown, a really light greyish kind of colour. Then I'm going to use some VersaMark sticky embossing ink because I am going to emboss this rose so that this makes it easier for my technique today. I'm just using some clear embossing powder and that way this will create some walls to go between my colours. Otherwise, I would have to wait a really good amount of time so that the ink was thoroughly dry in between doing colours side by side, and I usually don't like waiting. So clear embossing was the way for me to go. Now I have done this on some watercolour paper because I have got these colours here. So there's Overzealous, Clear Skies, Prom Queen, Crown Me, Traffic, Cone, Guppy, Slippery When Wet and Sike. And these are from the Simon Hurley range. Now I'm just showing you the ink pads just because they have the names typed on them, and I know that that is easier for some people. They can just freeze the screen. However, I am going to use the Reinkers and just put like 1 or 2 drops of the Reinkers out on an acrylic block, and I'm going to use these like watercolor. If you have a really nice set of watercolors that you want to use, then go for gold. You could definitely do this with alcohol markers or Copic coloring. You could do this with your Distress Oxide inks. You could do this with so many different things. I mean, coloring pencils, crayons, any media would work really well here. But I, as I said, am going for these inks today, and I want to make this a rainbow rose. So I am kind of starting off with some red and orange, and I am just going to swirl my way around. Now I am using a water brush to do this, but you could just use a paintbrush and with some water as well. But I am going to put on kind of like a base coat or a base layer of the ink first of all, and then I will come back and do touch-ups later on as well. I really always feel like I need to put in the disclaimer that I just am no artist. I enjoy what I do and I love what I do, but I don't have a very good sense of where shadows are and those sorts of things. So take my colouring with a massive grain of salt, and I just kind of do my best, and it's really enough to just get me through. But you can see here, even with the embossing lines, I still do get a little bit of that blue on the yellow. So I'm just using a little paper towel to dab that colour up quickly, and you can pretty much get rid of it all. So that is one good thing about using the watercolour paper and water reactive inks, is that I'm able to shift things around a little bit. As I said, I'm able to put the blues and yellows side by side and the greens and oranges side by side, which green and orange would usually make mud together. But I'm able to do that because I use the clear embossing powder to create a little wall in between those colours. So that is exactly what is helping me out here. Now I didn't have another colour that I kind of wanted to go to and use here, so I think I ended up mixing together the Prom Queen, which is like a bright pink, and the purple, which is Crown Me. So Simon, if you ever happen to be watching this, that is a gorgeous colour. And also we need a really true yellow in your ink line. So anyway, I am now coming back a little bit and adding in some kind of darker shadows around the edges. Now I know it feels really harsh when I kind of pop in these lines, but as I said, you can use your water brush to kind of water them down a little bit and drag them down towards the center, and then that way they fade out a little bit more, but it creates some beautiful definition And at some point I just need to kind of stop. So that is going to happen in a second. And this card here, I stamped the rose right in the middle of my piece of cardstock because I had a plan for how this was going to go. This did not go to plan at all, but I have left all of the footage in because I know that lots of people kind of say, you make it look really easy, you know, this all goes so well for you. Things do not always go well, but I have the luxury of being able to edit things out. So I keep some of these things in, and this is kind of like a work in progress as to how I get to the final card. So I stamped the rose, it just happened to be in the red color. All I am wanting to make is a mask. So I used some Tsukineko masking paper. I'm going to heat my image to make sure that it is really nice and dry so that the mask will stick well to it. And here's where things start to change course. So I actually got a couple of little red paint specks up there in the top left hand corner, but as I said, because these are water reactive inks, I am able to just add a little bit of water with the water brush and kind of go over it, dilute them down, and then dab it up with a paper towel, and they pretty much go away. So that worked out really well. I did have two little gorgeous people who I am talking to off the side. My son and my daughter are sitting here watching me over my shoulder, and I'm busy chatting away to them. And whilst I'm busy chatting away to them, I'm trying to multitask and get this filmed, and I do something not that smart. So I have just used a whole lot of water down there in the top left hand corner, and then I just come in and start ink blending over top with some Weathered Wood Distress Oxide ink, and everything is kind of going well. I really just want a nice kind of grey background here, and I know that this doesn't look very bad on camera, but in that left hand corner where all that water is has just kind of grabbed the ink, and you can see that I am hesitating here because I'm like, okay, how am I going to fix that up? And then from here I'm just going, okay, I'll just carry on, and I've just re-inked my little ink dauber. I'll just carry on and fix it later. And then I forgot that I hadn't dabbed off my ink. So this was the final straw for me. So I pulled off the mask, and I am now going to fussy cut out this rose, which is no big deal because it has really smooth lines around the outside. So it truly didn't take me long at all, but I am going to pop it down onto something else. I'm going to save that mask for later and just put it in the back of the stamp set. I have my card base here, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. I'm adding some low tack tape. This is the mint tape. And I am just masking off the edges here. You could definitely just use some copy paper and a little bit of removable adhesive on the other side to do this as well. But here I am going to kind of do a similar thing that I intended to do in the first place on my original panel. I'm coming back to that Weathered Wood Distress Oxide ink, and I just want a really, really light little bit around the edge here. I want to create an interesting background, but not something that is going to overtake that gorgeous rose. So here I have a stencil that I have in my stash. This is a really old one. Some transparent texture paste, which is going to dry clear. I'm putting on a nice thin layer of this, and I'm not worrying about the center there because I know the rose is going to cover this up. So I'm just focusing on the edges. And before that dries, I have taken off my stencil, and I'm going to add a little bit of white glitter. Now, I don't want this to be absolutely covered in glitter. I just want just enough on there to give it a gentle shine or sparkle. So I'm just gently tapping on a little bit of glitter. I don't want there to be a whole lot at all. So I am going to put this aside to dry nicely whilst I work on a sentiment, and I have this gorgeous little die here and then the sentiment from the same stamp set. However, my die is too big, so all I did was run it through once, then move the die down just a little bit so that it recut a little bit further down, and now I have the perfect shape and the perfect size for my little sentiment. I am going to stamp this. I put a little bit of removable adhesive on the back just so that none of the magnets get in the way whilst I am stamping. And I'm stamping it in some VersaMark Onyx Black ink. And wishing you a beautiful day, because I feel like this rose is one of those things that you just look at and it's kind of a beautiful, gorgeous, happy feeling. So the mask that I made earlier that I didn't really end up using, I'm just going to keep it in the back of the stamp set there so that it is ready for next time if I need to use it. By now my texture paste is all nice and dry, and you can see there is that gorgeous little bit of sheen to it. I am going to take off the low-tack tape, and you'll see that it leaves this gorgeous clean border. Now you can also, if I had done this the first way around with the original panel, I would have cut the panel down to be 4 by 5¼ inches, and it would have created a really nice frame this way. But seeing as now I'm doing this all right onto the card base, it's kind of like a faux frame that creates, you know, nice different layers, but without actually being a different layer of cardstock. I am going to pop my rose up with some foam tape, and foam tape always bends much easier if you take the release paper off the back first. So I am going to pop a bit on the back there, and as I said, it's going to go right in the center, so it is definitely the focal point. It's hard to miss, and then my little sentiment is going to go nice and flat just down the bottom there. So I had so much fun creating this rose. I will link everything that I can find down in the description box below, as well as links to my Facebook group if you would like to show me your own versions of this or what you were inspired by from this video. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks, bye!